The Evermore podcast is now sponsored by WFST Total Compliance. WFST provides fire safety requirements UK-wide to prepare you and your employees should the worst happen. Do what you do best and visit wfst.co.uk today. Enjoy the episode.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore Nufc channel. Tonight, you've got me again, as you did on Saturday night, in place of Chris hosting. And I'm joined tonight by Dan as a late substitute. Welcome, Dan, and welcome to the channel, everybody, tonight. Hope everybody's well. We'll get stuck into the topics in a second. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing really well. It's nice to be back on the channel. It's been a little while. I feel like my appearances are slightly more sporadic. But before I get into anything, Mark, I would just like to say, brilliant new intro. And also congratulations to you and Chris for reaching 5,000 subscribers. That's one hell of an achievement.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, I was going to come to that, obviously, tonight, because we hit that mark this morning. Just absolutely amazing. Blown away by the support from everybody. Just have to say another thank you. And we'll do it again. Chris will put out a video, or I'll get a video off him from wherever he is to say thank you, and we'll do the prize for hitting 5K. If you haven't seen it already, I'm just trying to find it in my uploads. This is the 5K prize. It is a signed Alan Shearer picture of his final goal for final competitive goal for Newcastle. So that will be up for grabs very, very soon. I think what we'll try and do is get the video out there this week. It'll be the usual deal. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment on the video. And then we'll do a live draw on Monday on what's going on next week. So we'll get that up just as quickly as possible for everybody. But again, just massive thank you to everybody for getting us there. And we're already heading towards, well, I'll jump the gun a little bit. We're already heading towards 10. Why not? Why don't we aim high? 5,032. So it's flown today again. So the support is huge. So thank you, everybody, again. I know I've just said that 1,000 times, but I cannot say it enough. So yeah, just amazing. And if by some chance you haven't, hit the subscribe button. Drop a like on the video if you do enjoy this sort of thing. Hit subscribe. Come and join the community. We do have a great community. Everybody's welcome. We're not afraid of anybody's opinions. We'll never shoot you down for opinions or anything like that. Come and get involved in the chat. We'll love it. Absolutely love it. And I'm starting to morph into Kevin Keegan now. So on that note, I'll move on.
I would love it if you would subscribe.
There we go. So we'll kick off and we'll get stuck into the first bit, and it's sort of around the game on Saturday at the Etihad, and he forgot where they played there for a second, and just about that, I guess it was a close game in the end. It was only 1-0. I guess City did have chances to score, as I said in the post match. They could have had a couple more, I guess, but Newcastle defended really, really well. But there is still that gulf. And I think there's a gulf between most of the Premier League now in City. And I think maybe some people are getting ahead of themselves. Stuart Pearce, perhaps one of them.
Yeah.
As much as you may like him for having said what he said, I think some people are getting a little bit ahead of themselves. There's no reason why Newcastle maybe can't do an Arsenal and try and challenge. But I think ultimately there is still that gap there, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, Man City are just a different beast, aren't they? I think that's just the upshot of it all. I mean, I thought Newcastle, as you quite rightly said, defended very well on Saturday. I thought Haaland was limited to, few moments. He only had maybe that one shot that Pope saved quite well, but I thought Botman and Shaw handled him really well for the most part in that game. As I said, didn't really have an influence on it. But I thought someone who did have an influence is Phil Foden, and he was finding little pockets of space between the lines far too often. I mean, I'll be honest, I was quite disappointed with Newcastle on Saturday. I felt like we could have given them more of a game than Newcastle actually did in the end. I mean, I'm not saying that things were terrible, and it is only the second game of the season, and everyone's still finding their feet. And again, it was only 1-0. But I feel like the midfield three looked a little bit, I don't know what's the word, they lacked intensity for me. I mean, Bruno, I singled him out in a tweet actually after the game, and I just thought he often holds onto the ball a bit too much, tries to do a bit too much without releasing it fast enough. Tonali you can sort of let off because he's still adapting to a new league, of course. But Joe Linton I thought had a poor game as well. In terms of the rest of the team, I've mentioned the defence. Obviously, Botman and Shaw, good. They were definitely the standouts. Pope made some good saves, and then the rest up front, Almiron did a lot of running, lacked a bit of end product. On the other side, Gordon did all right, but then I think the yellow card that he got sort of stifled him a little bit as well. So again, just not the best performance. I thought we could have given them more of a go than we did, to be honest. And I think Eddie Howe probably realised that we weren't quite at it on Saturday. But there's no disgrace that it's Man City, best club in the world. So, you know, we take the loss, we move on to Liverpool in a game that's much more winnable on Sunday.
Yeah, completely agree. And echoed a lot of what I said on Saturday night, that, look, at the end of the day, it was City. You go into the Etihad not expecting to lose, but it's probably going to be the outcome. It's the one place you go in the Premier League where they are so good that it is going to be really difficult, and you do your damn best to get out there with something. But there was, I think, a lack, and I've started to write a piece for the site, and it's about to be honest, it's more about Nick Pope, and that'll go out in the next day or two, I think. But in it, I was writing about the lack of composure from Newcastle players, particularly like the midfield and the forward players. And I think, you know, there was just that lack of composure on the ball from the midfield trio. Joe Linton especially, I thought, had a poor game. Huffed and puffed as he always does. He works damn hard, but he just looked a step off in terms of his crispness with his passing. We know he's not Bruno standard in terms of his passing ability, but even for him, he looked off. I think Bruno had a quiet game, but was made to be quiet. And some of the crap that I've seen online over the last couple of days about Bruno, and I know there's been other things about certain ITKs suggesting that he's maybe going to leave next summer. We'll not get into that, but on the back of that, there's been an awful lot of, well, he's not in it. He's not at the races. I don't think he had a particularly bad game on Saturday, but he was more ineffective. But he's up against Manchester City, who were playing a midfield with Rodri and Kovacic. You've got Phil Foden dictating the entire game. I mean, he was just simply sensational. And then if you look at the way that Manchester City, and I'm kind of jumping into the next section about the tactical sort of lesson here. I'll bring that up, and we'll combine the kind of two sections. But I think when you look at the overall midfield and the way that Pep played, he's really bottled that midfield, hasn't he? He's really condensed it. That you've got a Kanji right in the middle there, alongside Rodri almost in his Kovacic was playing a little bit further forward. Everything's in that middle. Everything's being done to negate Newcastle's midfield, because if you can prevent Bruno from playing, and you see by that passing map again, and we talked about this last season, and everything good about Newcastle flows through Bruno. Doesn't matter where it goes afterwards, but everything flows through Bruno. And if you can just prevent that, and even on that map, you can see that he's still dictating a lot of what Newcastle do, but they just negated the best of him, and that's what the best teams do.
They just look a bit narrow, Newcastle, there, don't they? So a little bit condensed, and sort of, I felt they just struggled to keep a hold of the ball. I think that was one issue, and I think Man City, obviously they play a possession game, and they just sort of passed it around and probably tired Newcastle out a little bit as well. But as we said, it is only game 2 of the season. It's a long old season. There's an awful lot of football still to be played, and in fairness, to get that game out of the way that early on is probably a good thing, to be honest. To not go there and be absolutely disgraced, to only lose 1-0 when, let's be honest, Real Madrid went there a couple of months ago and got battered 4-0. Bayern Munich have gone there, battered 3-0. To only lose 1, it's as much as no one wants to lose in football, it's probably not the worst loss you could take at a team that are just dominating the world at the moment.
No, absolutely not. And Newcastle had their opportunities.
They did.
You look at the run, the real frustration, and I mentioned that word again 1,000 times on Saturday. But when Wilson picks the ball up and is sort of through, and it should be sort of 3-on-1, and he just, his touch completely lets him down. The ball where Elliot Anderson gets in on the right-hand side and he just massively overcooks his cross. Miggy as well, decision-making in that final third where he's got the opportunity to play the ball early and then gets crowded out. It was just those little moments that just a little bit, and I go back to that word composure, just that little bit extra there. And all of a sudden the openings are there for Newcastle.
Yeah, you're completely right. As I say, there wasn't an awful lot of openings for Newcastle, but there certainly were moments where, with a bit more composure and a bit of better decision-making, they could have easily created a clear-cut opportunity, which you'd back them to score, given that the opportunities they created against Villa last week and the chances that they took. Sorry to say, Mark, I know, obviously, but yeah, it's just a bit of a shame because obviously Man City, they weren't perhaps at their frightening best in that game by any stretch, and they won it with a goal which was probably a poorly defended in the end. Probably one of the only moments of poor defending from Newcastle in that game, because as I said, the rest was pretty good. But yeah, just slightly frustrating, I think, and I think Eddie Howe probably realised that, and so will Jason Tindall. But I'm sure they'll be on it against Liverpool, because this is a Liverpool side who haven't. I mean, they looked good for the first 20 minutes against Chelsea on the opening game, but then looked quite poor for the rest of that game. And then against Bournemouth, yes, they've gone and won there, but Bournemouth has certainly given them a go. Obviously, Bournemouth took the lead as well, so this is a Liverpool side that will give you opportunities. Certainly not the Liverpool side of a couple of years ago. So I think Newcastle will go into that game, frustrated and perhaps, slapping themselves a little bit after that Man City result, but with a real opportunity to go and do one on Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp after his comments as well.
Well, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Anything again that shuts Klopp up, I think we can all get on board with that. I just want to jump in the comments because I am completely aware that I've completely neglected you all, so apologies straight away. Ian, a comment about fingers crossed Chris isn't back in the show, who was miles better with just me. Thank you, mate. I don't agree with that whatsoever. We do think we lack something when Chris isn't here, to be fair. On the subject of the cat, he is knocking around somewhere. He was enjoying the game on Saturday. He did get involved and was watching it. So he does support. We'll give him his credit. So there is that. Kevin, I think you've put in a comment about Hall. I will come to that with transfers in a second. Kevin, Chris, no, he's not unwell. He's just having some time away with family. So he's in pastures new for a few days.
So they've drafted in the younger model.
Absolutely, younger, better model. That's exactly right.
Sorry, Chris.
We've gone to Enterprise and we've picked ourselves a better model for a few days.
Well, what can I say, honestly?
Kevin, again, City's defence is so strong. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely not wrong when you consider that, arguably the best fullback in the world was allowed to walk away, basically. Walker's looked exceptional. The rest of their centre-backs, because they don't really play with proper fullbacks anymore, the likes of Ake and Akanji and Stones, Diaz, Gvardiol. I mean, Gvardiol is just a ridiculous player. I think I mean, he's great now. He's just going to be exceptional in the next few years. Ian, there's a gulf between City and every club in the world now. Pep leaves in 2015. I did knock a comment in there about whether Ian's got his DeLorean out for him just to go back in time.
I was going to say, like, how is he going to leave in 2015? Does he mean 2025?
It's wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking. 2025, I should imagine, in a couple of years' time.
It's a comment from Marcus. So really, Newcastle is a bunch of ball winners, intense game, not fluid or as a team. I mean, on that, yeah. I mean, the intensity is there to win the ball back, isn't it? And that's the ethos of the group, isn't it? Is that intensity is our identity, and that's what it's all about. That you saw the previous week, it was fluid. You just have to come up against a team like City, who are just a ridiculously good football team, and things like this will happen. And there's no shame in going there and losing 1-0, like you said.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. As I said, I'm not sure how much more you can say about it. To be honest, obviously, Man City, just as I say, we could probably go through every detail until the cows come home. But realistically, it's just Newcastle weren't quite at it on Saturday. Man City probably were at it massively themselves, but they're so good that they didn't have to be. And that's just the upshot of it. Is, to be honest, as I say, but as I also said previously, long season, plenty of football to come, and I'm sure both sides will be in for a good season. I can't see anyone else winning the league apart from Man City, to be honest.
No, I think that may be a done deal. 2 games. I know you've literally just said it's a long old season, but I think I'm right in the season.
I mean, they have let players go. In fairness, you think of Gundogan as one, of Mahrez as another, 2 key players, but they're sort of the model I think Newcastle would want to be in, how many years' time, sort of, where they can let these players go to finance, bringing in the sort of the replacements who are going to come through as well. Because yes, perhaps Gundogan and Mahrez are perhaps coming to the end of their peaks, so they think, right, that's it, off you go. We'll get in the next lot who are just as good, and that's the operation that they're having at Man City. So Newcastle aren't quite there yet. They're still obviously trying to add depth to the squad, and it does have, a lot more depth than it did last season. The bench is certainly a lot more stacked, and with options on it. But there's still a long way to go. But I think there is for every team in the league, to be honest, compared to Manchester City. But I have no doubt that the way Newcastle are going, and with some of the deals they're signing commercially and off the field, that they will get there one day. But for now, I can't see anyone challenging Man City. I mean, Arsenal gave them a good go last year, but yes, they've signed Declan Rice to see. But Arsenal, to me, still don't have a 20-goal-a-season striker.
No, they don't. I think if you watch tonight, I think Eddie Nketiah is obviously not that player. He's not consistent enough. They missed Jesus. He's not really a 20-goal-a-season striker.
No, he's not.
So
that's why Man City, I think we're happy. I think that's why Man City were happy to let him go to a rival like Arsenal.
He started like a house on fire last season, but then got injured, and he's never been the same as that purple patch that he hit. And you sometimes find that with some strikers. Look, Alan Smith had a purple patch where he scored a shitload of goals in a short space of time, and no one would call him a prolific striker, would they? So
I don't think he actually ever scored for Newcastle, if I'm rightly.
Do you know what? You might be right with that. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that one up.
Certainly not in a competitive game, from what I can remember. I'm sure I remember him hitting the woodwork in a game. I think it was a 4-0 League Cup loss against Arsenal, but I'm quietly confident that he never scored a competitive goal for Newcastle.
There's one for the comments. Let us know. I'd look it up, but then I'd lose my concentration. So yeah, drop that one in the comments if somebody wants to look that one up. Kevin, again, is it time to say goodbye to Miggy? Look, I don't want to. You end up potentially going down the scapegoat route, and look, it was one game. It was against the best side in the world. Again, we'll say it if we sound like we're completely repeating ourselves, but he will look worse against City than he did the previous week against Villa when everybody looked bang at it. I don't think it's not time yet. That time will come as Newcastle step forward, but
Yeah,
I don't think it's just yet.
No, not quite yet. I mean, Almiron obviously had that purple patch last season. He's sort of dipped under a little bit since, but had a really good pre-season and scored a good goal against Chelsea and a good goal at St James's Park in the Cellar Cup as well. So there's still something there, and I don't think it's time for him to go. You could argue, yes, his stock is probably up given the goals he scored last season. You could say this is probably an argument for him to be cashed in on, but then you're left a little bit short in that department with, just Murphy really. So you got to think probably not yet. And I'm confident Almiron will score a good few goals this season. Maybe won't get to 11, but you'd like them to think he'd get a handful and contribute to the overall team. I just think Newcastle have a lot of players this season who can score goals. There's goals all around that team. And just because it didn't quite click on Saturday, I know I've criticised them quite a lot so far this evening. But things will be all right for Newcastle this season. It's not going to be, disastrous. See, I was right.
Thank you, Si. So he knows what he's talking about sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I should hope so, given what I'm paid to do for a living.
Well, yeah, you'd like to take in some of this information. Otherwise, you might find yourself in trouble, mate. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Roger's commenting here. Eddie Howe will learn from his analysis. That'll feed. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Live a fool. I like that one. He is one of the hardest working managers in terms of the way that he analyzes everything, isn't he? And he's not short of a thought about what to do next, and he will take everything from that City game over the next few days and beyond, and learn a way to try and combat that next time. Absolutely. And you're only going to see that over the last 3 games against City, Newcastle haven't been a million miles away. Yes, they've lost 2 of those 3. They were exceptional at St James's Park last season in that 3-3. Could easily have won that. But the 2-0 and the 1-0 games have been relatively close. And like we said, just a little bit more quality there in the sort of final third. And those results could be very different.
No, I completely agree. I think I saw a stat. I'm not entirely sure what the time frame was on it, but the only times, I can't remember exactly for how long far back, that Erling Haaland has not scored the Etihad. Both of those have been against Newcastle. When Botman's has managed to Botman and Shaw. Actually, no, it was Botman and Lascelles previously.
Lascelles last season, yeah.
Yeah, and well, both of them did well. So yeah, it just shows that defensively Newcastle are they're pretty decent, and they've got a good defensive. Come on, this is a side who was the joint best defense in the Premier League last season, along with Manchester City, I do believe. So things are all right, as I keep saying. A lot of criticism from this game, but I feel like I'm probably repeating myself a lot at the moment. But as I say, there's not a lot else you can sort of add to it, considering that it's Man City. But things will be fine, and I'm sure Eddie Howe, as you quite rightly pointed out, Mark, will analyse this game thoroughly. Him and Jason Tyndall and the rest of the coaching staff will go through every little detail because I know what they're like, and they will pick up on every single little thing and make sure that it's better for Sunday. And I'm confident going into Sunday as well. I think Newcastle will win. I mean, it's certainly given what happened in the last game against Liverpool at St James's Park with Nick Pope and whatnot. But having said that, Newcastle were actually the better team in that game for the majority after Nick Pope got sent off. And I'm sure if they can, use a bit of that inspiration and the fact that they were better than Liverpool for the majority of that day, with 11 men on the field, I think they'll turn Liverpool over. I'm quietly confident of it. I mean, I'm not saying that Liverpool won't have their chances because they will. They're a great side, but I think Newcastle are better.
Yeah, absolutely. As Gary says there, be patient. It'll come. It will. But if the start of the season, 3 points from the first 2 games, I think most people would have taken that. And a big win first game of the season, a very close second game. You go into Liverpool still confident at home. It's on Sunday, isn't it?
It is.
So, the crowd are going to be pumped up, especially given that it's Liverpool. So, we'll like you said before, we want to see a performance. We want to see Klopp shut up. I did laugh earlier on today just on that Liverpool game. Chris sort of dropped me a message earlier, and I think he fell into the trap of one of the social media accounts that had put in a picture of the away dugout at St James's Park, suggesting that
did he
Klopp had
fall
asked
for
for
that
the
one?
game
Did
to
he?
be postponed. So I
did
think
see this tweet.
he just happened to. I don't think he checked it properly, and I was like, no, I think that one is it Frank. I think he missed that completely. So I'm glad he didn't start tweeting about that, because that would have been funny. But yeah, look, like we said, anything that shuts Klopp up is a good thing. So yeah, we'll go from there. I think we'll move on. There is a comment in here that I just wanted to touch on that leads us nicely into transfers. So Adiri, I think, apologies if I just pronounced that wrong. How you use Lewis Hall will be announced a Newcastle player today. It's sort of gone quiet with that, hasn't it? I know he was at City the weekend. I think it's just waiting for the right moment to bring, to get that one announced after all the sort of the bits and pieces at the start of the week. I titled this as, is he the last one? Do you think that's it? Do you think Newcastle's business is done for now? Or can you see there being any more in the last 10 days of the window?
Just to speak about Hall, I'm pretty confident that deal is done. We're just waiting for an announcement now. But Newcastle are notoriously slow to announce new transfers, so I wouldn't worry too much. It's a tricky one though. The second part of that question, I feel like Eddie Howe probably would want more. I think the club probably would as well. But I feel like once again they're sort of probably erring on the side of caution with regards to the financial fair play, which is a genuine factor. With regards to how much Newcastle can spend, because we're still waiting for a lot of the commercial money to come in. I mean, obviously, it sort of got spoiled a little bit about the Adidas deal on the 4th episode of the Amazon Prime documentary, which will come to this.
Is that somebody from Amazon getting sacked? I mean, that was a bit of a mess up, wasn't it?
I mean, they've put their feet in it a little bit, haven't they? Just a bit. I mean, regardless, obviously that will bring in an awful lot of money next season. I mean, obviously, Seller being the new front of shirt sponsor will have brought in some as well, but they still had to sell St Maximin to fund some of the transfers this season and this window. So signings in years to come will probably be more free flowing as commercial deals continue to come and the money starts to flow as well. Just look at Man City just look at Man United, Chelsea, whatnot. They already have these deals and have had them for several years. This is why they can spend and keep on spending and keep on spending. Newcastle were, we're only, was it like not even 2 years into this project yet. And already they've spent an awful lot of money, but have had to probably stop a bit short of what they would like to have spent because of the FFP. So I could see one more after Hall if perhaps needs must. I mean, Howe mentioned if there was an injury, they'd look at bringing someone in. Whether that, I mean, obviously you don't want an injury to occur to any player, but if it were to happen, I think they would bring someone in. Apart from that, I mean, to be fair though, Howe, having said the fact that he probably thinks it's the last signing, if after Hall comes in, you could probably take that with a massive pinch of salt, considering that Howe probably wouldn't talk about a signing even if it was sat in the room with them. I mean, he's very good at sort of saying he has no idea that someone is on their way in, even if the deal is practically done. And I think that's probably a good thing, try and keep it under wraps, keep it away from the likes of me and the media who want to know desperately what's going on. And we do get some bits and bobs every now and then, but for the most part, Newcastle they're a lot less leaky than perhaps they once were. Obviously, we still get bits, and that's how we are able to report the various comings and goings. But I could see them bringing in one more, but I wouldn't say it's a certainty or a guarantee. I think Lewis Hall will come in, they'll probably assess again, and they'll think, do we need anything? Obviously, as I said before, if an injury were to occur, they probably would. But you couldn't begrudge them if there were to be no more signings after Lewis Hall, because as far as I'm concerned, it's been a brilliant window in terms of recruitment.
I mean, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm tempted to even suggest that it's almost a 10 out of 10 window for Newcastle because of the business that they've done both in and out. You know, getting money for St. Maximin to be able to then bring in the likes of Livramento, and then if you move on to Hall, that back line going forward, there's one piece I think missing from the defence for the future. And I think somebody put a comment earlier on about De Ligt, because he sat on the bench at Bayern Munich. That would be an enormous, I think, amount of money to pull him away from Bayern. So I can't see that one happening. Not now, anyway. Not with the FFP constraints on the club. I think as some of the comments in here are, get another loan for us. I think that's probably the most likely.
Loans could be looked at, yes. I mean, the Lewis Hall one is probably going to be a loan deal with an obligation to buy. So clearly they are trying to be, as Hal put it, creative in the transfer market. But yeah, loans could occur. But as I say, there's probably no guarantee of anyone else coming in after Lewis Hall. But I think you're right, Mark. It is. I mean, they've addressed. You could only say maybe at 9 because they haven't got that right side of centre back they perhaps wanted in as well. But they've covered every other position on the field that they probably wanted to strengthen this window. So I think it's a 9 or a 10 out of 10 this summer. And as you say, it could get better. But regardless, I think Newcastle are in a really good position going into the rest of the season.
Yeah. Marcus says, I wouldn't be shocked and a couple more come in. But this is the way that Newcastle are operating, and some of these are getting done without any note to anybody, or the misdirection, I think, that's gone out there. I'm still convinced that there was the sleight of hand with Tonali where everybody was pointing in the direction of Barella, and all of a sudden Tonali was slipped in the back door to get that one through. And I think this is what Newcastle's MO in the transfer window is now. It's about keeping things as quiet as possible and just doing their business well and doing it efficiently. And I think I said before that I think you're absolutely right. They've addressed some of the holes. I think Barnes comes in and adds goals. He adds end product to that side. Obviously, you'll see more from Gordon this season. Tonali is key in that midfield. I think absolutely he filled a hole that was there in the squad and in that starting lineup as well. And that's harsh on Sean, I think, because I think obviously Sean Longstaff had a very good season last season, but it gives more balance into that midfield. It gives more options there. And Hall at left back and Livramento at right back. Again, it's about the squad. It's about the number of games that are going to be played, and a proper left back. And we've talked about that an awful lot. And again, harsh on Burn, I think. But I think you can see at times where Burn looks out of position. As good as he's been, there are games when he does look not lost, but he looks like he's playing out of position. So I think that's a wonderful pickup to get Lewis Hall on.
Lewis Hall did look quality against Newcastle last season at St James's Park. He was one of Chelsea's only half-decent players that day. Dan Burn's an interesting one because, of course, every sort of fibre of your being wants him to do well, given his upbringing and being from the area and sort of living the boyhood dream, I guess, of a Northeast lad. But yeah, his lack of pace sometimes is questionable, and sometimes he gets a bit bamboozled when a winger has that bit of, or that turn of pace, that first 20 sort of yards on the sprint. Dan Burn is fast enough once he gets going, but it's on the turn, and it's the first, as I say, that 20 yards where he takes a bit of time to get going, and suddenly he's beaten. I think if you're 1v1 and he stands you up, he's got a very good chance because he's actually a very good defender as Dan Burn. But he can get done for pace on a lot of occasions. So it's good to have someone like Lewis Hall, who is young and perhaps got a bit fresher legs than someone like Dan Burn, just to give him a bit of competition. Because I think Howe's wanting to build this sort of competition within the squad. Obviously, he's mentioned the fact he wants 2 11s to compete on all the fronts, but that's not just to say that Newcastle could play like 1 11 one week and then play a different 11 the next. It's also to create the competition within the squad so that players within the squad raise their own levels and their own game to keep others out of the team. But then, of course, those who are out of the team also then try and raise their levels in training, and when they do get an appearance, to get themselves back into the starting 11 as well. And it's that sort of competitive ethos within the squad that is how I was wanting to build to make them, winners, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One other comment in here about is one person, it would be either Joachim Anderson from Palace or Antonio Silva. Now, we did a rumour has it video on Silva that was out this morning. Another one that's just a massive prospect for the future. I think most of the big clubs around Europe will be sniffing around Benfica for him. They do seem to have a production line of exceptional young players there, so it's they do seem to find them. Sai has put in Yankuba Minto is a great spell at Feyenoord. Won't have to worry about looking for a Miggy replacement. Yeah, you can't disagree. I think if you start to see some more signs from Goran Qual as well, they're the future.
Mention him, yeah.
I mean, that lad has pace to burn. If he can just, he gets into a place now where he can get proper game time, proper learning, to develop his skills further, he'll fly as well. So, yeah, I think there's options, isn't there, out there for right side, I think, going into the future. So I don't think there's any rush to replace Miggy, certainly. And I know everybody bang on about his work rate for the team, but that suits Newcastle's style, that never stop running attitude that he has suits the way that Newcastle play.
No, I completely agree. And I think that's why Eddie Howe likes Jacob Murphy as well, because his work rate, his eagerness to get back and defend as well as attack. Both of them haven't always had the end product at times, but certainly have done their utmost and give 110% for the team. And you can't fault that because it's actually worked for Newcastle. Obviously, both of them did chip in with goals last season, so fair play to them. And if they could do that again this season, then even better. Yes, they'll both be replaced in years to come, but for now, it's great that they're on Newcastle's books and they're doing a job. And without them, would Newcastle have qualified for the Champions League last season? Yes, we can all look at sort of the big names, your Brunos, your Joe Lintons, your Isaacs and whatnot, but it's the sort of names like Nicole Almiron and Jacob Murphy, etc., who, I mean, obviously Almiron had his pivotal patch when he was the talk of the town, but for the most part, people like them go under the radar a little bit, and the work they do is invaluable in a team like Newcastle, who rely so much on intensity, as we've mentioned. So to have people like them, it's really key for the way Eddie Howe wants to play with this team.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. I'm just laughing at some of the comments in here. There's some love for the Scousers in our comments tonight. Yeah. There's
no love lost there, is there?
No, absolutely not. There's a few more. I can't find them all. I've actually scrolled past them, I think, but no, it's some fun and games there about the Liverpool game coming up, but it's always going to be like that, isn't it? So, yeah, we should look forward to that one. And like you said, look, we're coming to the end of the window. As one of the comments said before, wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 are being looked at. Maybe it's one more through the door, but if it is to be Hall's the last one, then I think you can shut the window this time around and go, yeah, they've had a really, really good one. Some more money come through the doors in terms of commercial revenue for next season. Obviously, the kit sponsorship. If they get anywhere near the kind of deal that Manchester United got for theirs, that's a huge amount of money to come in to help with that. And then you go into the January window and next season with much, much more available. Move on some more of the Deadwood who are out of contract or need to be moved on. And then again, it's just another building project to build on what is already a very, very good squad.
Oh, massively. It's a great squad, Newcastle's, and I think people don't realise that. Certainly up and down the country, just how much depth they have now. Obviously, it's sort of annoyed me a little bit reading some of the predictions for this season that Newcastle was sort of just outcast a little bit. I'm not saying they are going to finish top four again, but the fact that they weren't even in some people's conversations to finish top four again was really quite annoying, given they finished top four last season, have added to their squad in the summer window. Yes, other teams have improved, but Newcastle, it's not like they just disappeared all of a sudden and they've gone back to old Newcastle, because they've got better, and just because other teams have got better doesn't mean that Newcastle aren't going to be even better themselves. So Newcastle, for me, are still very much top four contenders this season. They've learned how to do it. They have the experience of getting top four now.
Yeah.
And they have an even bigger and more deep squad, I suppose you could probably put it. So lots of, as I said before, lots of football to come, and I'm sure Newcastle will be up there come May.
Yeah, absolutely right. We'll move on. We'll get onto the out of tune section. So the little bit about things that are going on outside of Newcastle, and in the greater world of football. And we touched on the subject of Liverpool. I did just want to comment on Air Soboslai.
He's flying.
Yeah, I mean, he was. There is a touch, but I mean, there's not a touch to warrant that. I mean, that's full on 10 points for his dive at that point. That is, it's an awful decision. I think
it's for me. It's just, how does then VAR look at? Do they think, oh yes, the only thing is that it's not a clear and obvious error is because there is some minute contact? But do they not think, and do they not look and think the player has made an absolute meal of that?
Yeah,
and it's
that's got to be part of it.
He's forced the contact himself, for one, and then but even that contact would not warrant the reaction that he is then given to, surely common sense prevails in that situation. Yeah, well, clearly, as I say, we're only 2 weeks in, and you look at the Wolves' decision against Man United last a week today. That's a clear penalty. He's literally taken him out. It's something you'd see in WWE, as far as I could say. Yeah. But then you look at that, and then you think, it just annoys me, Mark. I'm sorry. It's just
I get that completely. Sorry, mate.
No, as I say, it's just how they can claim this to be sort of the best league in the world and have officiating that wouldn't, go amiss on a Sunday morning somewhere. At times, I mean, yes, some of the decisions can be good, and but let's be honest, the consistency is appalling, and I think the whole country says that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at one of the decisions tonight for Palace. It wasn't given. I don't think it was a penalty, but it was almost a carbon copy of the Soboslai one. There is contact. It's minimal. It doesn't deserve the player to go down. Now, at that point, it becomes that simulation. That should be a yellow card for Soboslai, because he has greatly exaggerated any form of contact. And to me, that's much like when players are running through and they get pulled back and yet throw themselves forward. Again, yeah, it might be a foul, but you are massively over-exaggerating any form of contact, and physics doesn't work like that.
No, exactly. You don't end up up in the air by some distance because someone sort of kicked you on where was it, the bottom of the shin or the top of the foot, for example. It just doesn't happen. You don't spontaneously leap up like that as a result. But it just makes me think, what do they actually see, and what is the thought process? I know we've had some of the conversations being made available when they were broadcast. When was it, a few weeks back? But you think, well, how are some that look so much more blatant not given? And then you look at someone like that, and it is given like that. The one that's keep going in my head now is the Callum Wilson one that wasn't given against Man United at Old Trafford last season. And I'm not saying that's it's definite stone wall. But there's a lot of it. To me, it's probably is much more a penalty than something like that, because the defender's knee went out and tries to stop him, going, and he does quite cleanly catch him and puts him over. And there's no simulation there for me, because running at that speed, a knock of that momentum is going to sort of affect you and make you fall over. Whereas at that point, there's no pace, and he wasn't really running; he was just trying to do a little jink. It's not going to make you leap up like, oh no. Can we move on from VAR? I'm sick of it already.
We can. We move on from VAR, but VAR, there's that one. Now, I didn't think this was a red. I've got to be honest. That to me was really, really harsh. There is a comment.
I agree
about the thing, but Alan's put in here, the appeal's already been rejected and missed 3 games.
Has it? I knew they'd appeal, but I didn't realize it had been rejected, to be honest.
I haven't seen anything about that, but yeah, it was. To me, that's not a red.
No, it's to me, it's not a red card either. As I say, no. He's gone for the ball. Yes, he's late. Yellow
but
card.
It's not late by miles. Both feet are in exactly the same position. It's not like he stood him in the shin or the knee. It's just. I thought that was an awful one.
At very most, it's a yellow card, but you could even have an argument for it not being a card at all and just a foul.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. I think I said at the weekend it was I thought it was a foul and not even a card. I would have been furious if that was given against me. But there we go. That's hopefully then for Newcastle's point of view that does get rejected and that's a 3-game ban and happy days.
Yeah.
In other news, we have the worst football kit I think I've ever seen. I'm not even. I said to you before we came on, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the side's name.
Bolasaktokankita Palembang.
There you go. You're a better man than me. That's awful. It's just awful.
I can't say I recognise the kit manufacturer there from the next to the fake tie, but. You do wonder, don't you, sort of what goes through people's heads, like designers' heads, who are paid money probably to make a football kit, and you think, and what I often think is, did at any point, if they were looking at this on a computer screen or sort of on a sketchboard, did they just take a step back, just to look at it? And think, now, do we want our clubs, the people who are getting paid to represent our club, going out onto a pitch, wearing a shirt that has the outline of a collar and tie and belt?
We've got to bring it up again.
They look far too happy about that as well.
They really do, don't they? They really do. I've got to be honest, I'm surprised there's not a little Castori badge in the top corner of that. Can you imagine?
You see, the thing is, right, I know Castor are going to go after this season with Newcastle, but I don't think some of the designs have actually been that bad. I think, I really like last season's home kit. I really like this season's home kit. Some of the aways, perhaps, haven't been. But then again, I think the blue kit they had last season was really good, and I think I quite like the blue one this season as well. The green ones, of course, have their own connotations. Make of them what you will. But I think certainly the home kits have been really good by Castor, actually.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair. On the subject of the white and green one from last season, Southampton's away kit that they played in at the weekend was exactly the same kit. Nothing said.
No, but of course,
obviously for obvious reasons. But just laughed.
Yeah, I know. There's probably more to talk about in the fact that Saudi Arabia national team are playing games at St James's Park than there is the design of the kit for me.
Yeah,
that's more of an indicator of anything. Whereas a kit, yes, it might resemble the Saudi kit, but realistically, it's just a football kit. Come on.
It is absolutely right. Going back to that one from the Indonesian side, makes you think of awful. They were awful. The what were they called? The Spice Boys. They were referred to as at Liverpool side.
I mean, just bridging on that as well, wasn't there also, was it then the 98 World Cup when all the Romanians dyed their hair bleach blonde?
94. It was the
94 was
94
it?
World Cup, yeah. That was they were brilliant as well. So that was funny. That was funny. And well, Phil Foden and the Euros tried to copy. Well, he looked exactly the same when he tried to copy Gaza, who'd done it as well. Yeah, just that was funny. What was the last one on here? I think we had. Oh, that was it. Leeds fans, congratulations, Leeds fans. You get the banner of the week.
Oh gosh.
Obviously, there's been this thing about Gnonto wanting to leave, and apparently he's now said he wants to leave, but he doesn't want to go to Everton. Not surprised at all on that one, but this has got to be the best banner I think I've ever seen at a football from football fans. I just think that's brilliant. It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, that I to be fair, Mark, I hadn't actually seen that before right now, and that is pretty good. It's up there with the BMX 42 quid Ono for me.
Yeah.
Showing it first in Monaco of all places, Monaco away. Yeah, that is very good as well. Yeah, I mean you can see. I mean, the bloke taking a photo of it there. That's very good.
No, I absolutely love that.
I always love football fans' creativity at times. It really is unrivaled a lot.
Do you know is that the wit of a football fan is something you don't find anywhere else, and sometimes it crosses a line. There are elements of that, but I've yet to find another sport or another walk of life where you can almost instantly turn something into a terrace chant, and it gets picked up so quickly.
They can get any pop song, on the terraces, or they can get some. I don't know. I just like that football is a sport, but also a culture. I think as well.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I mean, you could argue other sports have cultures as well, but I don't think any of them have the culture that football has, sort of embedded and intertwined with it all the way through. Others have sort of like, that there might be elements to it, but I think football is very unique when it comes to its culture as a sport.
Yeah. Absolutely. I have to hold my hands up. I did get it wrong. You were right, Dan. It was 98.
I wasn't even born, Mark, and I still got it.
Sorry. And I should be embarrassed really at that. I'm just being battered now for that one. Yeah, hold my hands up. I made a mistake. I genuinely thought it was 94. Why did I think it was 94? I don't know. Anyway, I'll move on from that one. We'll end on a bad note. So I think that's everything we had to go through tonight. As I said at the beginning, obviously, huge thank you to everybody for clicking subscribe. If you haven't already done that, drop a click on the subscribe button now. Thank you very much for that. Drop a like on the video. It just helps it get on YouTube. Obviously, it helps with the algorithm and all that technical bollocks that no one actually understands. And like I said, we'll do the 5K giveaway over the next few days with the prize draw for next Monday. We have, what have we got coming up this week? There's another Rumour Has It video tomorrow. It's another centre back, and we'll have the preview out on Saturday. Oh, and there is the history one. What are we calling it? Throwback Thursday. Jesus, it's getting late. This week is another Newcastle legend to look at. Nice little short videos in the kind of mold of the See You Next Tuesday, but it's the positive side of things. So that will be out first thing on Thursday morning. So get involved in that. Have a watch. Let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. I'm laughing at this message from George. When will Les be crowned the inevitable 5K winner? Honestly, I've got to ban Les from entering because she just has the best luck in the world at this. It's absolutely ridiculous. To be honest, well, you've seen it. I use the random draw thing, and my money's on it as well already. It's ridiculous. But we will do that next Monday. So yeah, Dan, unless you've got anything else, I will leave it at that, and we will let
No,
everybody get themselves away.
No, it's been great to be back. I'll certainly try and get myself on a few more times in the next few weeks. But
Good man.
it's been good to be back, Mark. Thank you very much for having me. Chris, enjoy your little break away. We have missed you as we always do when you're not here. But apart from that, yes, good night, everyone, I suppose. Get yourselves off to bed. It is late, school night,
Get some rest. It is a cool night.
Yeah, it is.
All right then, guys. Well, thank you very much for getting involved. Thanks for watching. Like I said, drop a like, just subscribe on the channel. Plenty of room, as Chris would always say, for everybody in here. No bullshit, no ITK, just stats, chats, and a bit of fun. That's all we like. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.